Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? Ready to go back down under, mate?
Oh, dude, always. Always ready to hear some of your Australian accent, dude.
Yeah, so this week we're going down to Rockhampton in Australia. Yeah, Rockhampton. And we're covering a horrific serial killer yet again. But there is an interesting twist to this one. There's a scenario in this episode of which we've never seen. After all these episodes, after all these years, we've done, 250, 300 episodes, something like that. I think you've seen it all at this point, right? You know, dismemberment, cannibalism, you name
Bodies
it.
in barrels.
You know.
That's just Australia alone.
Yeah, wrongful convictions. We've seen just about every possible scenario in crime play out in front of us. But we've never seen someone testify at their own murder trial, meaning the person who was allegedly murdered shows up during the trial. And
Ooh, that seems detrimental.
Clearly,
to
I was
the
not
case.
murdered. Clearly. Here I am.
That seems detrimental to the case, though, right? I mean,
yeah.
How do you argue against that?
Well, in this scenario, this serial killer had killed many more and still went down for those. But one of the victims showed up and proved that they were, in fact, not murdered. So
what a twist.
Yeah.
What a twist. This seems like some kind of bad crime drama on TV.
Right.
Yeah, I'm interested to get into this case. I'm going to be learning about this case like the rest of you because I was not able to study this week, so this should be interesting. Usually I'm able to get some good study time in. So I'm learning about the Rockhampton rapist along with you.
Nice.
So this should be fun.
I think there's podcasts out there that do that. That's like their shtick, right? Every week one person presents a case and the other person's hearing it for the first time and they give their natural reaction. So we'll do our best impression of those type of shows.
There we go. Who knows?
I mean, there's been a few like this before. Let's be honest, Michael, where you're asking questions and I'm like, did he study this at all?
Did you study? Because you don't know anything. Yeah. No. I count on you. We count on you, Lauren.
Well, let's dive into this thing. I think I did a good job on the crime line. I studied this one hard, so I know my facts.
As always.
So hit me with the questions as you will.
Let's do it.
All right.
In the late 90s, Rockhampton was the hunting ground for Queensland's worst serial killer, Leonard John Fraser.
Fraser was nicknamed Lenny the Lunatic. This was before moving to Rockhampton, while serving time for dozens of offences, including assaults and rapes in New South Wales and Queensland. He should never have made it to Rockhampton, where he became the state's first serial killer.
His chilling criminal history spanning 30 years in Queensland and New South Wales, no sooner would he be released, he'd re-offend.
He was caught spiking girls' drinks and run out of town. Then in Rockhampton, his worst crimes were committed. Sylvia Benedetti, Beverly Lego, Julie Turner and Kira Steinhardt.
He was the epitome of evil, He's, there was just something about him that you just knew he was bad.
If you can't take the desire out of the offender, then let's take the offender out of society.
If you can't take the desire out of the offender, then let's take the offender out of society.
All right, so this week we are doing the Rockhampton Rapist, and we virtually traveled down to Rockhampton, Queensland, Australia, which Rockhampton is one of the oldest cities in Queensland, and it's in northern Australia. It, at the time, was a quiet town of around 60,000 residents with a relatively low crime rate. But then this killer pops onto the scene and women start disappearing, and that's it. We come to find out that that's because all it takes is one. All it takes is one of these creeps creeping around your community to turn it on its head.
That's right. And, every community has at least one.
Oh, yeah. Probably more. But, yeah, at least one.
Oh, yeah. I know. If you think about large metropolitan areas, how many serial killers do you think are active in them right now? Minimum 3, 4, maybe more. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? It's terrifying to think of. But just, statistically,
even if it's even if it's just a gang member who is killed multiple times, drive-by shootings, things like that, still serial killer. It doesn't really,
I guess so,
fit the mold of what you think of when you think of a serial killer. Just got done watching the Dahmer series. You got to check that out if you haven't, dude.
I will.
Oh my God.
I definitely will.
Wow. That is a ride.
Pretty intense, huh?
It's intense.
And the guy that they got to play Dahmer, though, that dude's amazing.
He killed
Ethan something, right? I
Yeah.
can't remember his last name. I'm blanking on it.
Dude, the way it's directed and the way, like, the actors and everything, it's so well done that you feel like you're one of the victims. It's fucking creepy.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking with Andy about it a little bit. He said that they tend to focus on the victims more, which is pretty cool.
They did, yeah. They did. It really did. There's an entire episode about one of his victims where you really get to know the victim before he even meets Dahmer. And so, like, when he meets him, you're like, no, you're like, don't go in there.
Turn around.
Don't do this.
Oh, God. Yeah. I don't know if that's better or not. Shit.
It's good. I mean, it's good to an extent. They need, I mean, it definitely, like, also it sheds light on how it just affects everyone, though. Like, you feel for his father throughout the whole thing. His dad was the dad from Step Brothers, that actor. Yeah. And he's just, like, heartbroken the whole time. Like, how did my son become like this? And, like, so it's like you feel for him. You also feel more, obviously, for the victims' families and stuff, too. But
of course.
Anyways.
Gosh.
We're not doing that case, but I definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend it before it gets taken off Netflix, because it's been quite controversial so far since it got put up there. That's right.
And if you've already watched it, check out our Dahmer episode.
Yes.
It should be here on the free platform as well. Yeah. If not, it's definitely on Patreon.
Yep. All right, so Rockhampton, Australia. We have a young girl, Natasha Ann Ryan, that goes missing at 14 years old. She was born in 1984 to Robert and Jennifer Ryan. She had an older sister, Donna, and when she was 7, she got a younger brother named Chris. At some point in Natasha's early teens, her parents got divorced, and her father moved 3 hours south with his new wife. And Natasha would stay in Rockhampton with her mother and siblings. But she became a troubled youth. Perhaps she took the divorce too hard, or she was just generally a troubled child. But for whatever reason, Natasha was a particularly difficult teenager. And by 1998, when Natasha was 14, she would fight with her mother frequently and was doing poorly in school. She was also using various drugs and even once tried cutting her own wrists.
Wow. And
on more than one occasion, she had run away from home, but was usually found within a day or so hiding out at a friend's house before being brought back home. But in the early summer of 1998, she told her mother she was taking the dog out for a walk and didn't return. On this occasion, she would be found 2 days later in a hotel room with her much older boyfriend, Scott Black, who was 22 years old at the time and worked as a milkman. Now, she's 14.
Oh.
So obviously, him being 22 is an issue in most societies.
Yeah, it's a pretty big red flag there.
They had met earlier that year, and the two had become inseparable. And of course, Natasha's parents didn't approve of the relationship due to the age difference. Scott was arrested. Yeah, and now she runs off and disappears with him for a couple days, and they are found in a hotel room.
Oh.
And so, following this instance, Scott would be arrested and charged with abduction and obstructing an investigation due to lying to police about Natasha's whereabouts.
Oh.
So,
okay,
he would be released on bond and was awaiting trial, surely facing some jail time. And he claimed that he had only taken her because she was threatening to kill herself if he didn't, which may be true.
I was about to say that
you're 22 and she's 14. You gotta cut this off.
Yeah, that's not that absurd. I could definitely see her pulling that card to try to get away from her family at this time. And it's a tough time anyway when your parents are going through divorce. Do you feel, I think there's a certain feeling that a lot of kids feel like, am I not enough to stay together? You know what I mean? So they feel like, they're just under the impression that their parents lost a little bit of love for them, so they're looking for it somewhere else. And when you can find someone who seems a little more older, someone able to support you, it's easy to fall into their arms. But yeah, this is definitely the 22-year-old's responsibility to cut this shit off.
Yeah, never should have happened in the first place.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
So following Scott Black's arrest, and he's released on bond, awaiting trial and all that, Natasha, her mother noticed a change in her behavior after that latest runaway and her boyfriend's subsequent arrest. She returned to school and stopped insisting on seeing Scott, and it seemed as though her mother had finally gotten through to her.
Mm-hmm.
Then on August 31st, 1998, Jennifer took Natasha, so Natasha's mom took her to school and dropped her off at the entrance. But that evening, she didn't arrive home. And by the next morning, her mother reported her missing again.
Oh, no.
And days would turn into weeks, weeks would turn into months, and Natasha's parents pleaded to the public for help locating their daughter. All she had with her on the day that she disappeared was her school clothes and backpack. So the idea that she could be gone for months with only those things, and she had no money. There was without being supported by someone,
Yeah.
she couldn't survive on her own.
Exactly. I'm just sitting here thinking, man, she just told them whatever they wanted to hear,
Yeah.
This just goes to show, like, it's tough. Those teenage years, those kids, like, guaranteed your kid is lying to you about something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's so terrifying as a parent. And she told them just whatever they wanted
There's
to
a bit
hear.
of boy who cried wolf here too, because she's already run away several times. So when Natasha's parents go to the police yet again for her disappearing, they're like,
good
well,
point.
this girl's run away several times.
Yep.
It didn't seem possible for her to get along so long without help, or was there the possibility that something bad had happened to her? And the boy who cried wolf thing backfired. So that happens. She's missing. And then 39-year-old Julie Turner went missing from Rockhampton on December 28th. So later that year, the same year, 1998.
Okay.
She had been out partying with some friends at a nightclub until the early hours of that morning. Something happened to her on her walk home. She decided to walk home from that club. She didn't want to spend the money for a taxi and disappeared without a trace.
Ooh.
So that was in late December.
Okay.
Then 36-year-old Beverly Lego was from Mount Morgan and had recently moved to Rockhampton. She was last seen alive on March 1st, 1999 in front of the Bank of Queensland.
Okay, so just 3 months.
A few months after that.
Yeah, 3 months later, right? December of 98
3 months later.
to March
Yep.
of 99. So it's, okay. It's about every 3 months right now is what we're seeing.
And escalating, because then in 1 month after that, 19-year-old Sylvia Benedetti was last seen alive at the Rockhampton Mall on April 18th, 1999. So
Okay.
the frequency is speeding up.
Yes.
Clearly a predator was prowling Rockhampton and making women disappear. The police started to be concerned for their community.
Yeah. Where the fuck is
Then
Scott?
on
Huh?
Yeah, Scott Black.
Yeah. Where the fuck's this guy?
Still awaiting trial, I believe.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
Or maybe he was actually locked up by now. I don't know. Then on April 22nd, 1999, 9-year-old Kira Steinhardt was walking in North Rockhampton, walking to her primary school, Rockhampton Primary School. So a 9-year-old girl walking to school. It was only the second week that her parents had allowed her to start making the 30-minute journey on her own.
Oof, that's a long walk for a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Even in the 90s, man. Even in the 90s.
She wanted to ride her bike like the other kids, but her stepfather said it was too dangerous because he didn't want her getting hit by a car. And she knew she had it drilled into her not to talk to any strangers and just to, basically beeline it straight to school and not making any stops talking to anyone.
Right.
However, there was a pretty sketchy part that she would walk through. There was like this wooded, overly grown grass area that she would cut through as a shortcut to get to school.
Oh, no.
And several onlookers watched as the little blonde girl walked through an overgrown field. So there was like, a neighborhood that backed up to this patch of woods. And there was one home in particular that had like a little porch, like balcony, that this couple would sit out and have their coffee every morning. And they watched as the little girl walked one morning to school, and they noticed that there was, an older man following her from a distance. He was a thin blonde man smoking a hand-rolled cigarette, and after she walked by and he was following her, he returned in the back the direction in which they had come a few minutes later.
Okay.
And they didn't think much of it. And I believe the wife of the couple, she was like, "Oh, that must be her father, just following her to make sure she gets to school safely."
Right. From a distance, creepily smoking a cigarette with a trench coat and a mask. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he definitely looked like a sketchy character, though.
Right.
He had, he was kind of covered in shitty tattoos and he just looked rough.
Okay.
So she was definitely on high alert. But this happens. The girl gets to school, and then the next day, though, the same scenario. They're sitting, this couple's sitting on their porch. She sees the little girl walking. She sees the guy trailing behind again. However, on this occasion, the man catches up to the young girl, raises up his arms, and at this point the wife was sitting on the porch and the husband had gone inside for something, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
And so he'd like run inside to like put the tea kettle on or something like that, and the wife watches as the man catches up, raises up his arms, and bashes this little girl over the head with either his fists or with an object. She goes to the ground. He's crouched over her, and the wife begins calling out to her husband like, "Hey, come here, I just witnessed something." And he's not really like, he's like, "Are you sure?" Like, she's probably questioning what she just saw too. You imagine witnessing this?
Oh,
like,
I know. How
bizarre.
I mean, otherwise in a neighborhood that's so safe that, kids walk 30 minutes to school on their own. Like, yeah. Terrifying.
So the husband comes out after the man had already like crouched over and walked away back the same direction of which they had come yet again.
Okay.
And so the husband goes out into the field to like look around to see if he sees the little girl in the tall grass, but couldn't find her.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
They watched then from their porch as the man drove his car, a maroon colored car, into the field, somewhere where people don't typically drive, especially cars.
Right.
And loads what appears to be the girl into the trunk. He wraps her in his t-shirt, takes his t-shirt off, wraps her body up in it, and puts it in the trunk, and then drives away.
Okay. And
Yeah.
This couple is watching all of this?
Yes. Yeah.
Why is no one on the phone yet?
And
Are they on the phone?
well, listen, the community was quite upset with this couple because it took them up to 40 minutes to call the police following this because they were in such a state of disbelief and shock of what they had just witnessed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Nonetheless, the community, upset at them or not, they had such a detailed description of this man and his car that the police knew right away who it was. They were aware of a man who had come into their community not long before and made his presence known.
Yeah.
And had a very violent criminal history against women and whatnot. And with this description of him and his car, the police were quickly able to apprehend 47-year-old Leonard Fraser, who had spent 20 of the preceding 22 years behind bars for rape of women.
Oh my God.
And so this guy was already well known to this community. He's the last guy you want moving into your town. He had been from town to town in northern Australia, it seemed, and had made his presence known right away in these different communities. And
apparently,
let's get into Leonard Fraser, our serial killer this week. He was born on June 27th, 1951, and shares a birthday with Tobey Maguire, Helen Keller, and Khloe Kardashian.
Okay.
Quite a group.
Yeah, quite a group. Not a huge fan of any of them, I guess. I mean, Helen Keller, great. Amazing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Every time I hear the story of Helen Keller, I'm just like, damn, that's amazing. You taught someone who can't hear or speak or see, or I mean, she could make noises, but she doesn't know what they are, how to communicate. Yeah. That's absolutely incredible. Like, imagine what she'd have been capable of if she could just see or hear, either one. Mm-hmm. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then Tobey Maguire,
Yeah.
the OG Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah, he's fine. So Leonard was born in Ingham, Queensland, and was the fourth of 5 children. His mother was a stay-at-home housewife, and his father was a machinist and World War II veteran that was rarely at home. So he didn't have much of a fatherly presence around in the home.
Right.
And young Leonard would struggle in school. He found it hard to focus and was thought to have low intelligence by his teachers. He also had a speech impediment, which further frustrated him. Kind of common for serial killers, right? They have some kind of disability early on.
Absolutely.
Speech impediment or a limp or something that kids pick on them, especially in the days where it was very common to just brutalize children.
Oh, God,
all the kids in the schoolyard.
God, yeah. And then
there wasn't so much anti-bullying awareness going around at the time.
And then this kid probably had ADD or something, and in the 90s, they're just like, sit still, pay attention. What's the matter with you? Take your Ritalin.
Well, shit, he was a kid he was born in 51, so you're talking it was late 50s, early 60s that he was dealing with the,
Yeah, if you had ADD, you were just a piece of shit back then. You just can't learn. You're dumb.
Well, like his own teachers said, he's just of low intelligence. That's all it is.
Okay.
So, not getting much help from school, he would drop out at 14, and his parents made him begin working. And at the time, they were living in New South Wales. And it wasn't long before his troublemaking streak reared its head again. Getting caught stealing at age 15, he was sent to a boys' reform school for a year, where, much like our boy Carl Panzram over here, learned might makes right is basically the same thing he learned in boys' reform school.
Oh, perfect.
He would be raped by bigger, older boys, and in turn did the same to smaller boys while in this reform school.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's some reform there. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's next? A short prison stint, and then he probably did some time in the military or something?
Yeah, sure. You know the deal. So, fresh out of the boys' school, Leonard assaulted a railway guard and received a 2-year bond. And from this point on, he would be in and out of prison for the remainder of his life. He would move to King's Cross in Sydney in 1972 at age 21, where he became a pimp and frequent drug and alcohol abuser.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
Just learning the street life early on,
Well-
in and out of different penitentiaries and reform schools. And
Well, what do you expect when you tell the kid at 14 that he's an idiot and he should just go to work?
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what was done. You know what I mean? Yeah, that doesn't go over well.
and very little influence from a father in the house who was always gone.
Right.
Mother dealing with 5 children as a stay-at-home housewife.
Yeah.
So,
They were probably like, the sooner you can carry your own weight, the better.
yeah. So he would do a year for robbery and was released in 1974. 3 weeks after his release, he would commit a series of random sex attacks on women in the street, leaving his wallet behind at the final one, leading to his arrest.
That's
so
what he
his
gets.
wallet fell out at one. What a rookie move.
Seriously. Who takes their wallet to a murder? What an
Yeah,
idiot.
on a series of rapes.
Fucking idiot.
This final attack was on a French tourist who was beaten so badly that she needed surgery and was left unable to have children. So an absolutely just vicious attack. This
Almighty.
one that he left his wallet at the scene.
Well, probably because she fought back, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it was so
Yeah.
brutal.
Oh,
and
that
then-
definitely set him off.
Yeah.
As we'll see from his own confessions later on, that if a woman refused him, it would enrage him and he would become extremely violent.
Yep. And then you lose control, and then you do something stupid like leave your wallet at the scene. Or,
Right.
Yeah.
Leonard would confess to this attack and was convicted and sentenced to 21 years in prison. And while in prison, he would be evaluated and diagnosed as a classic psychopath, which had no known treatment at the time. I'm not sure if there even still is to this day for like actual legit psychopaths. I mean, they're pretty rare.
I mean, they basically just sedate these people, right? I mean,
yeah, just lock them away and sedate
they're
them.
like, yeah. Here, take your downers. Play some chess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
right. So, despite being sentenced to 21 years for these attacks, he was released after only 7 years in 1981 after serving the minimum sentence. And after being diagnosed as a classic psychopath, they let him out with only serving a third of his sentence for whatever reason.
Well-
after already having quite a track record at a young age of,
Yeah.
brutal attacks on women and violent attacks.
Right. Well, maybe in Australia they're more about reform, right? Kind of like they are in like Danish countries. It's like nobody serves life. It's like the longest
Yeah.
sentence you can serve. I think it's like 20 years or something like that.
Right.
That's
It's all
crazy.
about rehabilitating.
Yeah, maybe.
But we know about serial sex offenders
Yeah.
that they will continue to do so unless you like castrate them and pill them up enough to where they're like a shell of
I was
themselves.
about to say, I don't know if it can't be done, but I've yet to witness a rehabilitated
Right.
sex offender. So, doesn't look good.
He would, after serving his 7 years of his 21-year sentence, he would then move to Mackay, Queensland, and find work as a laborer. A year later, he would attack a woman at her own home by pretending to show interest in a car she had for sale.
Oh, that classic.
Amazingly, even with his prior record of violent assaults, having been sentenced to 21 years for a series of rapes and only serving 7, he received a 2-month jail sentence for aggravated assault after assaulting a woman in her own home.
Unbelievable. A random attack in her own home,
Yeah.
and you get 2 months.
Yeah.
What in the hell?
This
dude?
should have been like, okay, we gave you a chance. You had your chance to rehabilitate yourself. You got a very lenient 7 years out of 21.
Yeah.
And then you go and attack a woman at her home. That's it. Like,
Immediately.
You're done. You'll never see the light of day again. That should have been it.
And they're like, all right, listen, we're going to give you 2 more months. Now, you better not do this shit again.
Right.
Oh, damn.
Bad boy.
Right?
Yeah.
What a slap on the wrist. Put this motherfucker away.
So following this incident, Leonard would meet a woman named Pearl, and they began having a serious relationship. And he would maintain full-time employment for the first time in his life as a laborer
Oh, wow.
for the railway.
Okay.
His life settled down, and for the next 3 years, he seemed to be on the straight and arrow. Leonard and Pearl, who would live together and had a daughter together, and he also had to play the role of stepfather to her son from a prior marriage. So he's got this little family life going for a few years, tries to keep it together. But in 1985, the monster inside of him returned, and he began stalking a woman for days as she walked on the beach alone. He then struck, raping her in broad daylight, and was quickly identified by police and sentenced to another 12 years in prison, the judge deeming him, quote, an ongoing menace to society.
Yeah, you just now figuring that shit out? But look,
Yeah,
how did
we should have
take-
known this a while back.
right? So you're saying, as far as we know, he went straight for 3 years?
Yeah.
No attacks?
Well, as far as we know.
As far as
who
we
knows?
know.
He might, yeah.
Yeah, that seems really implausible. I don't see that happening. 3 years for a guy like this? Man.
Yeah, and he's the type of guy we would learn later that would only confess to shit that they had like absolute damning evidence on. Mm-hmm. You know, like he's not the type to like give up more than he needs to. So he's very possible during that 3 years that he had attacked women at night.
Oh, very possible.
And they just never found the attacker.
And I think a lot of these killers, they like to use this information as, back pocket shit later on. If somebody wants closure to a case, they're like, all right, well, how about this much off my sentence? And then I'll tell you about that one. Mm-hmm. So, but if you give them everything up front, you've laid all your cards on the table. You get what you got so far, and that's it. But I think a lot of these dudes, they're thinking about that, especially.
They like to hold their cards
Yeah.
close to the vest and only play the ones they need to.
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
right time.
Because you have those others saved just in case. For a deal in the future, a lighter sentence, whatever it may be. What's up, creepers? I really need to take a minute to tell you about a brand new podcast called Faceless. Once I heard the trailer, I knew this show was going to be intense. So naturally, I binged the first 2 episodes that night. And let's just say it wasn't just the sweater weather giving me chills, okay? Faceless is brought to you by USG Audio and focuses on a murder that took place in December of 2000 when an unknown male broke into a suburban Tokyo home and ruthlessly slaughtered an entire unsuspecting family of 4. Now, what makes the story even more disturbing is that after the killer slayed the family, he made himself at home by staying the night. Follow along with host Nicholas O'Brien as he goes on a deep dive journey into this unsolved, cold-blooded case to unravel a paradox through multiple theories and details, finding himself on the trail of new leads, with one suggesting that the suspected killer might be from a little-known American town. So what are you waiting for? Start binging now. Well, after this episode, of course. And look for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. Listen and subscribe to Faceless on usgaudio.com. That's usgaudio.com, or wherever you get your podcast.
So while serving this latest 12-year sentence in prison, he was given the nickname by other inmates of Lenny the Loon. So
Fitting.
when other inmates say you're crazy, you're pretty crazy.
That's not good. That's not good.
Right. This time, there was no early release, and Leonard spent every second of his 12-year sentence behind bars. They really held him until the final moments.
Yeah.
Just because they knew what they had, and 12 years was just not enough. He needed life at this point.
Yes. He deserves life at this point.
He's shown us time and time again he's not going to stop.
No.
The second you release him, he's going to go back to doing what he did.
No doubt. The wife for 3 years, that was just for appearances.
Yeah.
That's all that was about.
So following his release from the 12-year sentence, in January of 1997, Leonard settled down in Yeppoon with a woman named Marie who was terminally ill with cancer. And this is something he liked to do. He targeted basically, easy targets, people who were disabled, people that couldn't fight back, children, as we see with the 9-year-old. So when Marie made her final trip to the hospital, this is her final day. She knows that the cancer is, taking her life, and she goes to the hospital and she knows she's not coming out. She tells him like, I'm not coming back home. This is it. Leonard would follow her to the hospital, and while at the premises, he would take her to the chapel on the grounds, lock her inside, and rape her before, so basically in her final days, when she's at her weakest, he takes advantage of her. And she would die shortly thereafter. He would then move to Mount Morgan, a small mining town. Just after arriving in town, he made his presence known to local police. One of the first things he did was poke his head inside of a police car while 2 officers sat inside and said, "My name is Leonard Fraser. How are the women in this town?"
Holy shit. The balls on this guy.
Just absolute no fucks given. And so when these 2 officers got back to the precinct and looked up his record, they couldn't believe what they were reading. Officers in Mount Morgan, along with other members of the community, would eventually force Leonard out of town, but by then he'd already done a ton of damage to the women and young girls of this community. So, they see this track record of just absolute, decade sentence after decade sentence for violent rapes and things on women.
God, dude.
Police would find out that he had targeted any vulnerable females, disabled women, underage girls, even often drugging them and raping them at knife point in his own home. In late 1998, Leonard moved again, this time to Rockhampton, and he moves in with a woman named Christine, who was intellectually disabled. And it was not long after moving in with Christine in Rockhampton that he murdered 9-year-old Kira Steinhardt. And that's when, he was arrested.
That's where we started.
For the final time.
Yeah.
Police quickly apprehend Leonard and talk to his girlfriend, Christine. And she tells them that the day that Kira went missing, that he had taken her for a drive to a remote location where she saw him remove a doll-like object from the trunk of the car. And so police, have her lead them to where she says this happened, but she's intellectually disabled, and she's unable to take them to the location successfully. They're unable to find the body until 13 days later, when Leonard finally agreed to take them where he had dumped her. And it turns out he had deliberately staged a fake dumping of the body with Christine as to buy himself more time. Basically, he must have taken like a doll or who knows what and dumped it at this location, knowing that she would then tell police. And it bought him more time because he was always under the impression that if a body had been exposed to the elements for more than a couple weeks, that it would be too late to extract any DNA from it.
Yeah.
And so that was his whole goal.
Oh, okay.
And
so he thought he just needed to buy himself 2 weeks.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So one day after her body was found, he was charged with abduction, rape, and murder, and police gathered 340 pieces of total forensic evidence tying him to the crime. So there was basically this girl's hair all over different parts of his car, like in his trunk and even in the front of the car.
Yeah.
There was blood everywhere, all kinds of stuff.
Maybe his teacher was right. He is of low intelligence.
Yes.
Lucky guess.
Yeah. Police then began finding ties to the other missing women from Rockhampton. They find Sylvia Benedetti's DNA in his car. And Sylvia was also known to occasionally hang out with Leonard, so there was another tie there. Mm-hmm. Police found many trophies of his victims in his home, and ponytails from 3 different women as well, which is super creepy. They were like roughly cut off as well, like with a knife.
Oh, of course. Probably just all at once with scissors.
Yeah. Or just sawed off with a knife.
Yeah, possibly.
While in prison awaiting trial for Kira Steinhardt's murder, Leonard would run into an old prison buddy named Alan Quinn. So they had spent some time together. Obviously, Leonard had spent at least half of his life at this point in prison, so you're going to make a few comrades in that time.
Most likely.
And so they're back reunited in prison together, and Lenny and Alan would begin taking frequent walks together around the yard. On these walks, Leonard divulged to Alan that he was considering trying to get an insanity plea for Kira's murder. Since he knew that they had enough evidence to convict him, his only chance was convincing them that he was crazy. Quinn, meanwhile, this buddy of his, was taking notes and relaying the information to police. So he was becoming an informant for them.
Right.
And with information gained from Quinn, police were able to piece together what happened to Sylvia Benedetti, this other woman that they had the DNA in his car. It turns out through the two of these guys talking, Quinn was able to basically get the story of what happened. Apparently, he had lured her to a derelict, now demolished hotel, the Queensland Hotel, and to room 13. Of course, it's got to be room 13, right?
Of course.
And this was with promises of 1.5 ounces of marijuana.
That son of a bitch.
He had this weed up there, right? How dare you?
Seriously.
Once inside the room, he had apparently made a pass at her, and she turned him away, and he then, in turn, brutally raped and murdered her to the point where when police went to this room, and this is an abandoned hotel, but when they went to this room 13 in this hotel, it was like the movie From Hell, like just blood spattered up onto the roof, like just an absolute horror scene.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, absolute brutal murder.
Well, he knew he was going down at this point. He knew he had nothing to lose. He said, fuck it.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And then this woman made him mad, too, turning down his advances.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh. So in September of 2000, Leonard was found guilty of 9-year-old Kira's murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And now locked away forever, Leonard began giving maps to Alan Quinn, who would allegedly lead police to the other missing girls from Rockhampton. So he gives some maps. Some of them were correct. Some of them were false, because at this point he was kind of toying with both Quinn and the police, knowing that Quinn was working with the police.
Right.
And so he was still playing games, but they were able to, some of that, like I said, some of the maps were legit, some weren't. But now under the guise of writing a book about Leonard Fraser, him and Alan would sit down together and basically, Alan Quinn is gathering information for this book that he's going to write, supposedly. But he's actually wearing a wire and recording Lenny's confessions and giving this right to the police. And he starts getting more information about these murders that he had done, like the murder of Julie Turner, who he said that he struck in the back of the head without saying a word to her. And with Beverly Lego, he said that they were driving and he put his hand on her leg. She swiped it away and he lashed out, beating her and ultimately killing her. So on December 22nd, 2000, Leonard agreed to fly with police back to Rockhampton and take them to the locations of his victims' bodies. He would lead them to Julie, Beverly, and Sylvia's bodies. And he remembered easily how to get there because he, much like Ted Bundy, had frequently returned to visit their bodies. And may or may not have continued to engage in necrophilia with them. He was no stranger to that because several of his victims he had raped after they were already dead. He had no qualms about that.
And he kept mementos and stuff. A lot of that stuff goes hand in hand. If they're keeping mementos, then they're revisiting the body and the burial sites pretty often.
Yeah. But what about Natasha Ryan? He was not able to lead them to her body, the 14-year-old that never came home from school that we've started this case with. Leonard had at this point confessed to killing her, and allegedly multiple witnesses had seen them together in each other's company. He claimed to have stabbed her and dumped her body in a remote part of Rockhampton after learning that she was pregnant with his baby. Yet he was unable to lead police to her body like he had the others. Police nonetheless charged him with her murder, as well as the other 3 that he had been able to lead them to. And now facing 4 more murder charges, Leonard brought out his alter ego, Squeaky, who he claimed helped him hide the body. So this is his
Here we go.
Hail Mary attempt at an insanity plea. He's going to make up an alter ego named Squeaky.
Please tell me he used a squeaky voice to do it.
Oh, God, I hope not. Well, I kind of hope he did, but I hope he didn't at the same time. It's the cringe factor.
Hi, Leonard, I know where you hid the bodies.
That's almost as cringy as Russell Wilson in his Subway commercial. Oh my God. So, yeah, he's trying to basically make this alter ego who is culpable for these crimes and hiding the bodies and things like that. He snaps out of his thing of being Squeaky and of obviously the courts and the jury's not buying. On April of 2003, Lenny stood in the court again and entered a plea of not guilty for the murders of Julie Turner, Beverly Lego, Natasha Ryan, and Sylvia Benedetti, even after leading the police to the bodies of 3 of the 4.
Yeah, kind of awkward.
But on day 9 of the trial, a shocking new development turned everything on its head. The court would receive, and they would, go into recess early on this day because they would receive information that Natasha Ryan, the supposed first of Leonard's murder victims, had been found alive and well.
Say what now?
Natasha, in 2003, was now 19 years old and had spent the prior 5 years in hiding at her older boyfriend Scott Black's house.
Oh my God, fucking Scott Black! He had her the whole time.
Black.
I told you to watch.
You knew
Scott
he was
Black.
going to come back in this episode. You knew it.
I knew it. I was like, we need to go check out Scott Black. There's something going on there.
Yeah.
God damn.
And in about the most rare situation you can imagine in a murder trial, one of the murder victims makes an appearance and testifies to the fact that she is not in fact murdered, that she is alive and well, and that she had never seen Leonard Fraser's face until he was on television as a serial killer, basically. And that's when the pressure was on, because it seemed as though there was a few people, like maybe members of Scott Black's family, that was aware that she was hiding out at his house all this time.
Yeah.
And they just, at this point, when they're seeing that she's part of a murder trial, that she was supposedly murdered, they finally basically force them to okay, that's enough with this fucking lie. And Natasha Ryan would come out and say that the lie just got too big. Like at a certain point, it was like she felt so terrible coming out about it because it'd become this big thing.
Yeah.
Probably the first few months she was just happy to be away from her home life and whatever, but then it just became this massive thing where she was assumed murdered and everything.
Yeah, and she was like, I'm just gonna start a new life.
Yeah. She was basically staying in the home, hiding in there and living on the internet. And she had gone on a few trips to the beach out of state. And that was about it. That was the only time she left that house.
Oh my God.
In that 5-year period.
So Scott Black was, but
had
he wasn't
been a relief
holding
for her, right?
Against her will. He wasn't holding her against her will or anything.
She was willingly there. Nonetheless, of course, he's going to face trouble for that.
Right. It looks like kidnapping, right? If the parents press charges.
Yeah.
It looks like kidnapping.
Because she was 14 at the time that
Yeah.
he, held her up. For the first 4 years of it, she wasn't even
Either
old
way-
enough to make her own decisions
Yeah.
as far as law goes.
It's like, sorry, Scott, bro. Either way, though, you're 22 having sex with a 14-year-old. Like,
Yes.
yeah, sorry, bro.
Yeah. And hiding her out from her family,
Yeah.
participating in that, aiding and abetting her.
Yeah. It's kind of creepy.
So Leonard was obviously immediately acquitted for her murder charge. However, the rest of the trial went on unabated, with Alan Quinn as the star witness, the man that was in prison with him and getting all these details and confessions.
Right.
And on May 9th, 2003, Leonard would be found guilty of murdering Beverly Lego and Sylvia Benedetti. He would receive manslaughter for killing Julie Turner because the jury actually believed that he hadn't intended to kill her and that it was an accidental murder, I suppose, which is absurd in my opinion.
And which one was that?
That would be Julie Turner. I think she was the one that was on the beach that he stalked. Or no, that was actually, he didn't kill that one.
Okay.
This is the one that he just like struck her from behind and he didn't say a word to her.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure where that murder took place, or manslaughter, I should say.
Right.
It seems kind of ridiculous, right?
It does.
Like, what a slap in the face of her family. Like,
If you
I don't get
if you
it.
start your encounter with someone with knocking them over the head, then you had nefarious
Yeah.
intentions.
And they end up dying. That's murder.
That's murder.
Like, come on.
Absolutely.
It's not like you accidentally, hit somebody with your car on accident. That's manslaughter.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly. Two different things here.
yeah. So Leonard Fraser was being held at the Woolston Correctional Center, and after complaining of chest pains, he was taken to a secure section of the Princess Alexander Hospital in, this is a good Australian name, Wollongabba.
Wollongabba?
Hey, Wollongabba, mate.
Wow.
Wollongabba. He was taken to Wollongabba. And on December 26, 2006, the day after Christmas, he died of a heart attack on January 1st, 2007. So starting out the new year dead. That's the best way for a serial killer, right?
Absolutely.
Now listen to this final detail, though. We zoomed right through this case. There's this is all meat,
Right.
very little potatoes
Yeah,
here.
seriously.
But I'm going to leave you with this creepy detail that just to show you that this thing it's not done yet. There's going to probably be more victims attributed to him later on.
Uh-oh.
Obviously, I'm sure they've kept his DNA after his death,
Right.
So they can, follow up with things. But eerily, after testing the roughly chopped off ponytails that were found in Leonard's Rockhampton home, forensics would determine that none of the 3 ponytails belonged to any of his known victims.
Uh-oh.
So, who knows who those ponytails belong to, if there's more bodies out there. And like I said, he's only given up stuff that they have, like, in, basic conclusive evidence that he did.
Yeah.
He hasn't like gone out and just said and given them more victims for no reason.
Right.
So.
That's what I'm saying.
And now he's dead. So it's
The 3
beyond.
years, man, that's just sus for me. 3 years
Mm-hmm.
with no murders, no rapes. I don't think that's possible for him.
Yeah.
For a repeat offender like this, all this time in prison, you still can't straighten out all these different opportunities. But, what a crazy case, dude. Well told, too.
Yeah.
I like the way you unfolded everything. I like that. I like being able to experience it.
Yeah, it was an interesting ride, wasn't it?
Indeed. Great case, man. Was this suggested, or you just found this one?
No, I just found this one.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. Well, there it is. The Rockhampton rapist.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what else you need to find? You need to find some Oh My Guy in your pits.
You do. You'll be glad. You'll be extremely glad.
They stink. Let's be honest. Your pits could smell better, and you're putting aluminum and antiperspirants are not. They're not the real deal, man.
They're not.
It's bad to try and stop your body from sweating. It's supposed to sweat.
Yes.
You're clogging up your pores and creating more damage.
Right.
By trying to stop yourself from sweating. Just make it smell pleasant when you sweat.
There you go. People really aren't turned off that much by sweat. It's mainly just the smell. And if you got some Oh My Guy, you ain't got to worry about that. And you ain't got to worry about clogging your pores when your body's trying to remain healthy and get rid of toxins.
Yep.
Oh My Guy is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while still maintaining effectiveness. And at Oh My Guy, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. Guys, there is tons of scents to choose from. You can check it out on ohmygaia.com. There's vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber, pear, sweet pea, sailor, barbershop. And we have our very own scent called True Crime Pine. So if you don't know where to start, that is a great place. It's a nice unisex scent, goes with everybody. There's beard oils available as well as scented oils in all of these scents. But True Crime Pine, it has our old school True Crime Guys logo right there on the jar. Pretty cool. Pretty cool little thing that Wendy put together for us years ago. But because you're True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the word creeper for 15% off your order. That's CREEPER for 15% off your order. And that's at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. OHMYGAIA.com. You guys won't regret it. Code word creeper.
Nope. You also will not regret checking out our other weekly sponsor, Tonic CBD. It's true, not all CBD products are created equal. From how it's grown and processed to how it's formulated and delivered into your body, every step of the process that goes into making the product affects your ultimate experience with it. That's why Tonic's products really stand out. Founder Brittany Carbone created her own original formulas using CBD, adaptogens, herbs, and superfoods back in 2017 and has been working to deliver the most effective, intentional, and sustainable products possible. Tonic cultivates their own hemp grown on their certified organic farm in upstate New York. That hemp travels only 30 minutes to their state-of-the-art manufacturing and distribution facility where it's turned into a finished product and sent to you, ensuring only the highest quality vibes at every stage of the process. They have a bunch of different blends, including, depending on your needs. Chill Tonic is my favorite. I usually take that about 30 minutes before bed, and just all my worries go away, and I melt into bed and have a great night's sleep. And it's easy to verify the quality of their products as well. They have a microchip in the top of their packaging that allows you to tap your phone on it, get third-party lab reports, product information, details about their farm, and blog posts to provide you with education on CBD. So with quality values rooted in quality, integrity, and sustainability, Tonic is committed to creating a plant-based wellness product that is good for you, good for the planet, good for the people. Visit tonicvibes.com to learn more and use code word CREEPER for 20% off your order. That is code word CREEPER at tonicvibes.com for 20% off. Michael is actually may or may not be partaking in some Tonic product right now at this moment.
Yes, this is a CBD.
Totally legal. I don't even know why I have to be all...
You don't have to be. This is completely legal in every state.
To be so cryptic about it.
Right? This is really cool. I just got these in from Tonic. They're Sessions pre-rolls. These are CBG pre-rolls. Check this out. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can see the packaging here. And this is what Lauren's talking about. This little code right here will tell you everything that's in the product. Give it a little scan. It'll let you know, and then it brings up a screen like this here. And it lets you know. You can click on the different strains, see exactly what is in what you have. It's very cool. These are really cool. They come, like I said, there's 5 pre-rolls to a little case. You can get these at Tonic.
It's really beautiful. It's almost like you don't even want to you almost don't want to use them because it's so pretty.
Oh, it's so nice.
It'd be the perfect stocking stuffer with Christmas coming up.
Right? Very nice, guys. So you're out, you can smoke these in public, whatever.
Yeah, and if you're the type to roll your own joints, you could then use that case afterwards to store your joints in there.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a metal tin. Reusable metal tin. I mean, these things are great. So as with all of Tonic's products, they do not skimp on the packaging. Everything looks amazing.
Nope. Yep.
All right.
All right, so check that out, and then check out Patreon if you haven't yet, patreon.com/truecrimeguys to get so much more of our content. $2 a month gets you access to most of it. $5 a month gets you access to everything we've ever made, essentially. And you can pay up front for those, $54 for a year and save 10%, or $21 on the $2 tier and save 10% as well, and you're done. You don't have to worry about your card getting hit monthly.
That's right.
And you get 12 months of our premium content over there.
And also, just recently, I don't know if you guys have been on Patreon or not, but recently Patreon has updated their terms, and it used to be that Patreon would charge patrons on the first of the month. Okay, so what happens is if you sign up on September 30th, you pay the full price for September, and then on October 1st, you have to pay again. That is how they used to be. But as of yesterday, Patreon has updated their terms, and now you will pay on whatever day you sign up. So it's
that's cool.
Yeah, it's a little more fair now. So if you,
because typically you're going to sign up when you have that extra income, like that for whatever, your schedule of payment and stuff.
Yes.
I know there's times during the month where it's tight for my wife and I, as far as like, checking's low right now because we were waiting on this new check to come in.
And everything comes
Usually
out
you're
on the
to sign up
1st.
for things like that at a time where you have a little more expendable income. So yeah, that's how it should be.
Exactly. So you can sign up on a pay week, you know what I'm saying? And then it'll just keep drawing on that at that same time, which is nice. You don't have to worry about getting hit on the first, when your rent's due or whatever else. So I thought that was a pretty cool feature that Patreon has updated. So patreon.com/truecrimeguys.
And on the $5 tier, we have a show called Just the Banter, which we're about to record after this episode ends.
Yes.
Where we just shoot the shit, man. We catch up and we answer questions from listeners, and it's just not necessarily crime related.
Right.
Just us hanging out, and you can be a part of that over there. So
that's right.
Yeah, check all that out, and that about does it. Hope you guys have a great week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next week. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.
From the minds of True Crime Guys, come
TCG Weekly. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to check out all the other programs on the TCG network. Every Wednesday, a new episode of True Crime Guys proper, Strange and Unexplained on Mondays, and Full House Fantasy Football on Fridays to start your weekend. And if those aren't enough, head on over to our Patreon account, where you can have access to hundreds of hours of content, including older episodes and other Patreon exclusives like Strange Shorts, Sandu Stories, Higher Thoughts, and the 5-Minute Murder Show. But until next time, guys, keep creeping. Hey, how do you shut this thing off? Over?